We are starting off today with AEW, which made a wave of releases to its roster this week, with names being cut including Parker Boudreaux, Anthony Henry, Stu Grayson, Dasha Kertel, and The Boys. This is the first time AEW has made cuts to its roster in this fashion, so it wasn't a surprise that many fans were left wondering why exactly this decision was made. PW Insider reports that these releases were not due to financial constraints, but rather stems from a strategic organization of how AEW utilizes its roster. The company aimed to allow talent the freedom to pursue other opportunities outside of the company while keeping the door open for potential future use. The Boys, also known as the Tate Twins, are unrestricted free agents, despite having roughly 16 months left on their AEW deals, showing AEW's flexibility for their released talent. Contrary to what some fans have claimed, these cuts aren't a result of AEW paying huge amounts to bring in the likes of Will Ospreay, Kazuchika Okada, and Mercedes Moné. Ultimately, these released stars will now have to find a living elsewhere, but it seems the door isn't entirely closed to AEW, as the company is focused on reorganizing its roster right now. Over to Raw, as the go-home show before WrestleMania 40 went off the air with the Bloodline standing tall after a beatdown on Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. The Rock and Roman Reigns whipped both men they'll face at WrestleMania 40 Saturday to end the show, but things didn't stop once Raw went off the air. As revealed by footage making rounds after the show, The Rock was seen brutally whipping a referee who came to check up on Rhodes, and the ref recoiled to the floor. The Rock as a heel has proven to be a highlight of the road to WrestleMania 40, and this segment shows it's not just his opponents who have to worry about the final boss. The Rock may have excelled as a heel, but that was not WWE's initial plan, as the original goal was for babyface Rock versus Roman Reigns for the latter's title at WrestleMania 40. Immediately, fans rejected the idea of The Rock taking the title match away from Cody Rhodes, and the We Want Cody movement would prove too much for WWE to ignore. In a recent interview with ESPN, The Rock's business partner Brian Gewirtz weighed in on the fans rejecting The Rock and what the final boss actually thinks of all this. He said, "Would the fans be as adamant that Cody Rhodes needs to finish his story if he didn't win the Royal Rumble? Once he won the Royal Rumble, I think there was a certain element of, hey, don't screw with us now. You can't dangle the Royal Rumble win and then take it away. I think everyone, Rock included, was like, yeah, they're right. We should continue this story as it would naturally play out as if this were real life. If this were real life and he won the Rumble and he didn't win last year's WrestleMania, there's literally no logical reason, even though you could try to make one up, why he wouldn't want to face Roman and win the title." For 2 years, Rhodes' story in WWE has been about winning the WWE title, which is now part of the undisputed WWE Universal title, so it's not hard to see why fans were so mad about The Rock. Fortunately, it seems like everything worked out for the best, as Cody will challenge Roman Reigns this weekend, and The Rock has been delivering some of his best work in years. Rather than the electrifying, if not predictable, Rock we've seen make returns for years, this Rock is something very different. And what do you make of this? Let us know in the comments. The Anoa'i wrestling family is much bigger than what fans see each week on WWE TV, and could fans expect Lance Anoa'i to join the company following his MLW exit last October? Taking to Twitter this week, Lance asked fans if he could be next and capitalized 3 letters in that word, those being N, X, and T. Lance added the Bloodline's The One signature emoji, teasing that he could be part of the faction in due time if WWE decides to bring him on board. With WrestleMania just days away, perhaps the Bloodline are looking to bring in some extra help, and could Lance be making his arrival that soon? Time will tell. Back to Raw, as Drew McIntyre hosted a funeral on this week's show, both for CM Punk's WrestleMania main event dreams and for Seth Rollins' World Heavyweight title win. The Scottish Warrior eulogized both and showed supreme confidence going into this weekend's title match, but some fans may have found this segment a bit familiar. As fans online pointed out, this was the same funeral parlor that TNA had used twice before, the first being for a funeral for Team 3D from an October 2005 edition of Impact. Years later, TNA returned to the funeral parlor to host a funeral for the Aces and Eights, which would take place on the November 28, 2013 edition of Impact. The choice of location may not have been a coincidence, as WWE has some notable TNA names backstage, with Jeremy Borash, part of NXT, and Chris Abyss Park, a producer on the main roster. At WrestleMania, we'll find out if this funeral was apt or a premature burial. And did you recognize wrestling's favorite funeral parlor? Let us know in the comments. In 2022, WWE introduced the Uncle Howdy character, which was played by Bo Dallas. But when Bray Wyatt was taken off TV, Howdy was also removed from programming. With Wyatt's passing last August, questions have circulated as to what WWE will do with Bo, but WWE gave a big clue during the recent Bray Wyatt Becoming Immortal documentary. The Peacock doc features several interviews, including with Bo himself, but it is the very end of the documentary that has had fans talking about Dallas's future. The documentary ends with a lantern panning out with a voice urging viewers to run, a phrase often associated with Wyatt's WWE persona. Fightful Select reports that this teaser is working towards Bo Dallas's eventual return to WWE, but specifics regarding when he'll be back or storyline plans for him are currently unknown. It's worth noting that Bo Dallas has been under contract with WWE since 2002, so the actual rehiring process is one less thing both he and WWE need to worry about. When Ringside News asked around, they confirmed Bo is under contract and said that there were indeed pitches for his television return, though they never materialized into fruition. Bo was understandably emotional in the documentary, and we'll have to see what WWE has planned when he makes his return to programming. Over to NXT, and in a chaotic tag title #1 contenders match, Frazer and Axiom overcame the OC and the LWO, with Frazer hitting a 450 splash on Joaquin Wilde for the win. This match was everything it promised, with fast and exciting action, and Frazer shone with his speed, while Gallows and Anderson were the hated heels slowing things down with strikes. Frazer and Axiom were the right team, but this was a genuine surprise, as NXT has teased Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin versus Gallows and Anderson repeatedly in recent months. The speedy team will deliver something special in a rematch from the best match of the Dusty Classic, and this could see a title change before Breaker and Corbin head to SmackDown. With Vince McMahon gone from WWE and seemingly never to return, Triple H is finally booking WWE his way without having to look over his shoulder at his father-in-law. Many fans have commended an improvement on WWE's storylines as angles feel more real and are giving better matches, but what do those in WWE make of the changes? In a recent interview with Sportskeeda, Corey Graves highlighted a noticeable increase in creative freedom granted to talent under the leadership of the game. While rules and guidelines still exist, they are no longer as stringent as before, allowing performers more room to express themselves. This was evident with a recent segment between CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, and Seth Rollins, as the three men were granted a lot of flexibility as to what they could say on Raw. This segment from the March 25th Raw proved to be a highlight of the night, and in the interview, Graves acknowledged Triple H's deep-rooted understanding of the wrestling business. Graves called the game an old-school guy and a wrestling historian with an unmatched passion for the industry, past and present. According to Graves, Triple H's approach has been refreshing, with a willingness to listen and collaborate, and has empowered WWE stars to unleash their full potential. With a newfound sense of independence, talent has flourished under Triple H's guidance, ushering in a new era of creativity and innovation within WWE. Things certainly seem more positive in WWE compared to the walking on eggshells approach many had to adopt to handle working for Vince McMahon. WrestleMania 40 will be Triple H's first Mania without McMahon around, and if Graves' words are anything to go by, expect a stunning show this weekend in Philadelphia. This week, WWE confirmed their next UK premium live event, as Clash of the Castle Scotland will take place on June 15th from the OVO Hydro venue in Glasgow. WWE has a wealth of Scottish talent on its roster, but one WWE superstar accidentally let slip about the company's plans before they were supposed to. Before WWE confirmed Clash of the Castle, Alba Fyre shared her excitement for the event by leaking a graphic for the show and quickly deleted the offending tweet. After WWE announced the show, Fyre shared a new tweet, sarcastically noting that the event was brand new information she'd just learned. Fyre is from Glasgow, so Clash of the Castle will be a homecoming for her, and she'll be hoping to make the card despite this accidental leak this week. More from WrestleMania, as the show is just mere days away, and 3 of the confirmed matches will be women's matches, but fans are hoping to see a 4th bout added to the card. In recent days, the hashtag Battle Royal for WrestleMania has been trending on Twitter, with fans making it clear they want a women's Battle Royal at this weekend's event. A battle royal at Mania, even on the pre-show, would guarantee these superstars a WrestleMania-sized payday, and WWE did have said battle royal back in 2018 and 2019. These matches were won by Naomi and Carmelo respectively, but have yet to return despite the men's battle royal making a comeback following the COVID-19 pandemic. It'll be WWE's call as to whether a women's battle royal takes place, but if so, WWE doesn't have long to make the match official for WrestleMania. On NXT, Carmen Petrovic may have had Natalya in her corner, but that wasn't enough to save her from Lola Vice, and with 3 minutes, this match came off too one-sided to build Petrovic. Roxanne Perez was out yet again to complain about how she's been treated in NXT as of late, but Lyra Valkyria refused to take her comments seriously before the Prodigy threw a punch. The Valkyrie responded with a fireman's carry slam through a table, and Metaphor, especially Noam Dar, had fun watching the drama unfold on Supernova sessions. Both women delivered as expected, but the post-promo brawl was less interesting as it was too limited to the Supernova sessions stage and could have been more elaborate given the story. Still, this is easily the second strongest story for NXT going into Stand and Deliver. The stage is set for Perez to take back the NXT Women's Championship and get the title reign that she deserves. Femi decimated Joe Gacy in their match, with the referee ending the match when Gacy couldn't fight back, and we certainly hope that ending was intentional. This was the way to keep building Femi, who was challenged but never truly lost control of the action, as he remains unstoppable and will face 2 big men that are still not at his level. Shawn Spears had a cameo role by attacking Gacy with a steel chair, and their feud is moving very quickly, and hopefully it'll establish the heel's new gimmick. In Ava's office, Gacy begged the NXT GM for a match with Spears at Stand and Deliver, and she was quick to make the match official. On last week's Collision, Matt Cardona made a surprise return to AEW and unsuccessfully challenged Adam Copeland for the TNT Championship. On his Major Wrestling Figure podcast, Cardona discussed his appearance on the show and said he had to rearrange his schedule as he was originally slated to face Shota Umino that day. Instead, Cardona's Squared Circle Expo title match was moved to Friday and saw him face Nick Nemeth instead, allowing him the opportunity to appear on Collision. Cardona said that facing Copeland was a dream match and career highlight for him, as both men have come a long way from their time as allies on SmackDown in 2008. Matt has certainly proven himself since his WWE release 4 years ago, and while he didn't win gold at Collision, expect plenty of more titles for the self-professed indie god. It's been just over 2 months since Vince McMahon stepped down from WWE for the second time due to the shocking allegations made against him in Janelle Grant's lawsuit. This lawsuit and the 2022 scandal have put a spotlight on WWE's treatment of women over the years, but one of the biggest female stars ever isn't surprised about these allegations. During a recent interview with News Nation, Ronda Rousey admitted that she wasn't shocked to learn of the allegations against McMahon, as she stated, "It's not surprising. I can tell you the reason why nobody else is speaking out is because they know that there will be negative repercussions if they say anything about the company that the company doesn't like. Everybody is being held hostage by their careers, but since I don't plan on going back there unless they make some very major changes, I feel free to say whatever I want to say, which I've always felt that way. I don't really care if they have me back or not. I can wrestle wherever I want to wrestle, and the truth should be told." Ronda Rousey has made a lot of negative comments about WWE lately, and has claimed that she doesn't see herself returning unless massive changes are made internally. It was recently revealed that Grant wrote a love letter to McMahon during her tenure with WWE, though her side has claimed she was coerced into writing it against her will. McMahon has denied all claims of wrongdoing and has called the lawsuit rife with fabrications, and we'll make sure to follow this situation for further updates. At WrestleMania, Roman Reigns will compete on back-to-back days, which is a huge deal for the Tribal Chief, but is nothing new for countless other members of the roster. Superstars often have to work days in a row as part of live events, and yet Reigns' schedule sees him work far less than anybody else and gets paid much more. Speaking to ABC Philly ahead of her match this weekend, Becky Lynch was asked about Reigns' match with Cody Rhodes and didn't hold back on her comments against the head of the table. "It's going to be hard, but that's why they're the champs. For Roman, he's probably doubling his work that he's done over the last year because he hardly ever shows up to work. It's going to be real tough on him. It's going to be a lot hard on him. Cody is used to fighting. Seth Rollins is used to being a fighting champion. I think Roman Reigns is going to have the hard time here." Reigns has had one of the most lengthy title reigns in history, though there's an argument to be made that it wouldn't have been as long had he been a full-time member of the roster. This title reign could be mere days away from ending, but what do you think of Becky's comments? Should Reigns wrestle more for WWE? Let us know in our comments below. Ren Sinclair brought the fight to Ariana Grace, but it was the Beauty Queen who stole the win on NXT with her hands on the rope during the pin in another building performance for her. Sol Ruca beating Blair Davenport on NXT was a surprise, but may not mean the end of this rivalry, and hopefully a definitive match will put one of these women in the title picture. Fallon Henley dominated her match with Jacy Jayne with physical offense, but when Kiana James and Izzy Dame attacked Thea Hale and Kalani Jordan, Henley tried to save them. She returned to the ring and ran straight into Jayne's running knee strike that ended the match, and this bout didn't have enough time to feel like more than an extended angle. Henley was working hard to make the most of the time, and these two could revisit this with championship implications later in the year. The goal this week was to set up the expected 6-woman tag match for Stand and Deliver that was teased last week, though Jayne, James, Dame, and Jasmine Nix have an unclear alliance. They could just be heels working together temporarily or a growing stable, but the feud has made it very clear why fans should root for Hale, Jordan, and Henley to make them pay. Von Wagner charged at Lexis King to start their match in a sign of uncontrolled anger, but he was too focused on hurting King and sending him through the announce table. This allowed King to slip away and hit the coronation to win, continuing this feud despite the lack of chemistry between the two, which is also being hurt by 50-50 booking. There will almost certainly be a final fight between the two to settle who is better, but despite the best efforts of both men, this rivalry lacks any excitement. Hopefully Wagner will come out looking a little more credible as he's running out of chances to shine in NXT, though we could say the same for Lexis King. Carmelo Hayes refused to take blame for what he did to Trick Williams, calling him out as trying to steal his title, and Trick called out his ego before the fight had to be separated by the roster. Anytime Melo tried to speak, the crowd raised the volume to boo heavily, and this was a segment NXT had fought hard to protect and had avoided putting Melo and Trick in the same ring to talk. That was until this night, and both men delivered explaining their points of view, and Trick noted that this was the first WWE PLE main event on WrestleMania weekend to feature two black men. NXT has built a strong card all around, but the presentation here made clear what matters most to this brand, as the former Trick Melo gang have had the brand on their back. Compare this to the rather subdued NXT title feud segment, in which Tony D'Angelo took Ilya Dragunov to a special dinner, saying that it'll be his last as champion. Hayes and Williams need to deliver, as it is very possible for another match to steal the show, but this must be the moment where Trick comes off as a main event guy for good. Now, the last time fans saw Jeff Hardy in the ring, it was on the February 16th episode of AEW Rampage, in which he suffered an injury during his match with Sammy Guevara. Hardy joined AEW 2 years ago, but many feel he hasn't been used to his fullest potential in the company, and this injury has been yet another setback. During a recent interview with WrestleZone, Matt Hardy provided an update on Jeff and gave details as to when fans can expect him back. He said, "He's doing okay. Yeah, his vision issues are good. He had to have surgery on his nose. He had some issues with his sinuses, so he had surgery, so he's still got 3 or 4 more weeks before he'll be cleared to return." It remains to be seen what Jeff does when he's back, especially as Matt's AEW deal is ticking away, and it's not been confirmed whether he's signed a new contract. Matt has also expressed frustration with how the Hardys have been used in AEW, with Jeff saying last year, "It sometimes feels like he's a ghost in the company." Have you been missing Jeff Hardy on AEW TV? And do you think the pair need to be used better in the promotion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Now, WrestleMania has always been closely tied to celebrities, and this year's event will see some notable names in attendance at the show. PW Insider reports that Drew Barrymore will be in attendance, and while she's not normally associated with WWE, she has hosted The New Day and John Cena on her show multiple times. During this week's Raw, it was confirmed that Lil Wayne will also be at WrestleMania, and Philly native Meek Mill will play a special role, voicing the opening video for the event. WrestleMania is sure to be an epic event, and some people will have the best seats in the house this weekend at Lincoln Financial Field. And we're ending with CM Punk, who certainly has no shortage of enemies in the world of wrestling, and for a while, Corey Graves was seemingly among them. In 2018, Graves reacted to Punk's UFC fight with Mike Jackson by saying his longtime friend had abandoned him and suggested Punk wanted nothing to do with him because Graves worked for WWE. Speaking to Sportskeeda this week though, Graves gave some positive news about his relationship with Punk as he said, "I'm proud to report that it's all water under the bridge. Actually at the Royal Rumble I finally had a chance in person to talk. I bumped into him briefly the night of Survivor Series backstage, but it was chaotic. He had just come back, everything was at 11 at the moment. The day of the Royal Rumble at Tropicana Field, I actually got to pull him aside for a few minutes, and we cleared the air, and we had a nice long chat." It's certainly great to hear that Corey Graves and CM Punk are now friends again after so many years of animosity, as Punk is growing as a person in many ways right now.